Let me tell you about the tragic death of the 12 disciples of Jesus. After their master resurrected, each of them dedicated their lives to spreading the message of Christ, but all met violent and painful ends. Peter was crucified upside down in Rome, while Andrew was tied to an X-shaped cross in Greece. James was beheaded in Jerusalem, and John died in exile on the island of Patmos. Bartholomew was flayed alive. Thomas was pierced by a spear, and Matthew was killed with a sword in Ethiopia. Philip, Simon the Zealot, and Jude Thaddeus also died as martyrs in different places. As for Judas Iscariot, the great traitor, he hanged himself after betraying Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. The death of the apostles is a testament to courage and unshakable faith. Would you be willing to give your life for Jesus? I invite you to stay until the end to discover the full answer to this mystery and learn valuable lessons for your spiritual growth. Let me tell you about Peter, who was initially known as Simon. He was a professional fisherman and was one of the first to be called by Jesus. Peter left his nets and his boat to follow Jesus and become a fisher of men. He was known for his impulsive character and great faith, but also for his moments of doubt, like the time he denied Jesus 3 times before dawn. After the resurrection and ascension of Jesus, Peter became a key figure in the early church. He traveled to different regions, preaching the gospel and strengthening the faith of the first Christians. However, those were dangerous times for those who followed Christ. The Roman Empire, under emperors like Nero, saw Christianity as a threat to its authority and pagan beliefs. In the year 64 AD, the situation in Rome was particularly tense. Nero, famous for his cruelty and excesses, sought someone to blame for the Great Fire of Rome and pointed to the Christians. It was in this context that Peter was arrested and condemned to death. His faith and leadership had made him a prime target for the Roman authorities. It is said that Peter was sentenced to die by crucifixion, one of the most cruel and humiliating forms of execution at that time. But Peter, always humble and aware of his place before his master, asked to be crucified upside down because he did not consider himself worthy to die like Jesus. This decision reflects his deep devotion and his sense of unworthiness before the sacrifice of Christ. Imagine the scene, a hot afternoon in Rome, with an agitated crowd and the cruelty of public executions. Peter, already elderly and probably weakened by years of travel and persecution, faces his fate with calm and unwavering confidence. His last words, possibly prayers and messages of encouragement to other Christians, would have encouraged them to keep the faith despite the difficulties. Peter's crucifixion was a crucial historical moment for Christianity. His death was not in vain. His example of sacrifice and devotion has inspired countless believers throughout the centuries. The church he helped found continued to grow and expand, carrying the message of Jesus to every corner of the world. Reflecting on Peter's life and death, we understand the deep conviction and love he had for his faith. His sacrifice invites us to consider how much we are willing to give for our beliefs and values. Are we prepared to face challenges and adversity with the same courage and commitment? Peter's story reminds us that although the path of faith may be difficult, the spiritual rewards and the legacy we leave can be eternal. Let me tell you about Andrew, whose name in Greek means brave or manly. He was the first to follow Jesus, known for his enthusiasm and desire to be close to his master. Before knowing Jesus, Andrew had been a disciple of John the Baptist. It was he who, after meeting Jesus, ran to find his brother Peter to tell him, "We have found the Messiah." This desire to share the good news became a key feature of his ministry. After Jesus' resurrection, Andrew devoted himself to bringing the gospel to distant lands. It is said that he traveled through Asia Minor and beyond, preaching in what we know today as Turkey and Greece. His mission was not easy, as he faced resistance from pagan religions and hostility from Roman authorities. Despite all these difficulties, Andrew continued preaching with passion and determination. One of the most moving stories about Andrew took place in the city of Patras in Greece. His preaching caught the attention of the governor of Achaia, who was determined to stop the spread of Christianity. Andrew was arrested and sentenced to be crucified. Instead of an ordinary cross, he was tied to an X-shaped cross, which we know today as the Cross of St. Andrew. Imagine the scene, a public square in Patras, filled with curious people and Roman soldiers. Andrew, with a serene face, is tied to the cross in a position that prolongs his suffering. Unlike regular crucifixions, where death came relatively quickly, Andrew remained on the cross for 2 days. During all that time, he continued to preach to the gathered crowd, speaking about the hope and love of Jesus until his last breath. The image of Andrew hanging on that particular cross, speaking with courage and confidence, is a powerful representation of his commitment and dedication. His martyrdom not only marked his death, but also ignited a flame of inspiration among the early Christians. The X-shaped cross became a symbol of his sacrifice and the spread of Christianity in Greece and beyond. Reflecting on Andrew's life and death, we face a profound question about our faith and beliefs. Are we prepared to face adversity with the same determination and hope? Andrew's story reminds us that even in the darkest moments, the light of faith can shine, guide us, and strengthen our spirit. James and his brother John were fishing in the Sea of Galilee when Jesus approached them. He called them sons of thunder because of their strong and sometimes impulsive character. From then on, James witnessed many of Jesus' miracles and teachings. He was part of the inner circle of the Master, being present at key moments such as the Transfiguration and the prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane. After Jesus' resurrection, James dedicated his life to preaching the gospel with all his passion. However, those were difficult and dangerous times for Christians in Jerusalem. The city, controlled by Roman authorities and marked by religious tensions, became a place of persecution for the followers of Christ. In the year 44 AD, King Herod Agrippa I, seeking to gain favor with the Jewish leaders, launched a harsh campaign against the Christian church. James, known for his leadership and enthusiasm, was one of the first to be arrested. His influence and dedication made him a prime target for the authorities. James' execution was swift and cruel. He was beheaded with a sword, becoming the first apostle to die as a martyr. This act was intended not only to eliminate a Christian leader, but also to instill fear among the followers of Jesus. However, the opposite happened. The courage James showed in the face of death strengthened the faith of the early Christians and became a symbol of resistance and sacrifice. Imagine the scene, an early morning in Jerusalem, with the city waking up to the sound of bells and the hustle and bustle of people. James, chained and escorted by soldiers, walked with firm steps towards his final destiny. His face reflected a deep calm, an unshakable faith in the message he had dedicated his life to proclaiming. With a final prayer on his lips, he gave his life for the cause of Christ. James' death marked a crucial moment in the history of Christianity. Although his life was brief, his legacy has endured through the centuries. His sacrifice inspired others to continue preaching the gospel with courage despite threats and persecution. In that social and political context, James' execution shows the oppressive power of Rome and the desperation of the Jewish authorities to maintain control. But it also reveals the growing influence of Christianity and the steadfast determination of its followers. Reflecting on James' life and death, we ask ourselves, how much are we willing to sacrifice for our beliefs and values? Can we show the same courage and commitment in the face of adversity? James' story invites us to think about the depth of our faith and the legacy we leave, reminding us that sometimes the greatest act of love and devotion is being willing to give everything for what we believe. John, brother of James and son of Zebedee, was called by Jesus while fishing in the Sea of Galilee. Together with his brother, he was part of Jesus' inner circle, witnessing many of his miracles and most intimate moments. John was known for his deep love and devotion to Jesus. In fact, it was to him that Jesus, while on the cross, entrusted the care of his mother Mary, saying, "Here is your mother." After Jesus' resurrection, John dedicated his life to preaching the gospel and strengthening the faith of the early Christian communities. Throughout his life, he wrote several books of the New Testament, including the Gospel of John, 3 epistles, and Revelation. His writings, full of love, hope, and divine revelation, have inspired Christians through the centuries. During the reign of Emperor Domitian, in the year 95 AD, John was exiled to the island of Patmos for his faith and preaching. Patmos was a small barren island in the Aegean Sea that the Romans used to banish political prisoners. Despite the harsh conditions of his exile, John continued to receive divine visions and wrote the book of Revelation, a revelation about future events and the final triumph of Christ over evil. Imagine the scene, a dark cave on the island of Patmos, with John already elderly, meditating and praying. Through his visions, he finds comfort and hope, knowing that the suffering of Christians will have a glorious end. His words, written with love and devotion, have guided countless believers in times of persecution and despair. Unlike many other apostles, John died of natural causes in Ephesus, around the year 100 AD. His long life and profound writings have left a lasting legacy in the Christian faith. John is remembered not only for his closeness to Jesus, but also for his message of love and unity. In the social and political context of the time, John's life reflects the resilience and hope of the early Christians. Despite persecution and trials, his faith remained firm. His exile on Patmos, though difficult, became a source of divine revelation that has inspired generations of believers. Reflecting on John's life and death, a profound question arises about the power of love and faith. Can we maintain hope and devotion in times of adversity? John's story reminds us that through love and unity, we can find strength and comfort in the darkest moments. His life invites us to cultivate deep faith and unconditional love for others, knowing that these values are the pillars of a full and meaningful life. Thomas is primarily known for initially doubting Jesus' resurrection. He wanted to see and touch Jesus' wounds in order to believe. However, his skepticism turned into unshakable faith and passionate determination. After encountering the risen Christ, Thomas dedicated his life to carrying the message of the gospel to the farthest corners of the known world. According to tradition, Thomas traveled east, bringing the gospel to Persia and then to India. At that time, these regions were populated by different religions and cultures, such as Zoroastrianism in Persia and Hinduism in India. Thomas's mission was not easy. He faced resistance from religious leaders and indifference from the people. However, his enthusiasm and devotion allowed him to establish several Christian communities that still exist today in the Kerala region of India. One of the most moving stories about Thomas took place in the city of Mylapore, near Chennai. There, after years of preaching and converting many to Christianity, Thomas encountered opposition from local leaders. He was arrested and tried for his faith and for the success he had in converting so many people. Despite threats and torture, Thomas remained firm and refused to renounce his faith in Christ. Imagine the scene: an angry crowd, the local leaders looking at him with disdain, and Thomas standing calm and confident. His body was marked by blows, but his spirit remained steadfast. Finally, he was condemned to death and taken to a nearby mountain, where he was pierced by a spear. His martyrdom was a powerful testimony of his faith and commitment to the mission that Jesus had entrusted to him. Thomas's death was not in vain. His legacy has endured through the Christian communities he founded, which continued to grow after his death. His story reminds us of the strength and perseverance needed to carry the message of the gospel to unknown and hostile lands. In the social and political context of the time, Thomas's missions reflect the global expansion of Christianity and the challenges faced by the early missionaries. Despite cultural and religious barriers, the Christian faith extended beyond the Roman Empire, reaching distant lands and transforming lives. Reflecting on Thomas's life and death, the question arises: how much are we willing to risk for our convictions? Can we remain steadfast in our faith in the face of opposition and danger? Thomas's story invites us to consider the depth of our convictions and to be inspired by his courage and commitment. His life and sacrifice remind us that even in the most unexpected places, the message of love and hope of Jesus can flourish and change lives. This was the tragic death of some of the 12 apostles of Jesus. After walking together through the brave and moving story of each of them, it is time to reflect on the lessons their lives and deaths leave us. For those who want to delve deeper into the stories and teachings of the apostles, the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, are essential for understanding their vocation and ministry alongside Jesus. The Acts of the Apostles, written by Luke, detail the first actions of the apostles after Jesus' ascension and the first persecutions they faced. The letters of Paul, Peter, John, and James also offer valuable insights into the teachings and challenges of the early church. In conclusion, the tragic death of the apostles of Jesus leaves us with profound lessons of faith, love, and courage. Reflecting on their lives, we are called to strengthen our faith, love unconditionally, and face our challenges with courage. May their stories inspire us to live a life dedicated to Christ, always remembering that the sacrifice and dedication of these first followers of Jesus left a legacy that continues to change lives to this day. Now, I invite you to tap the recommended video on the screen to learn: Where is the Garden of Eden? The Mystery of the Lost Paradise. Explore the most fascinating theories and best-kept secrets about the legendary Eden. From ancient writings to modern archaeological discoveries, this video will take you on an incredible journey to solve one of the greatest mysteries in history. Don't miss it.